Hello everyone and welcome to Community Connection, your window to the world around you. Children are our most valuable, precious commodity and treasure. And today we have with us the Chief Executive Officer of Guiding Harbor, Maria Lessnau. Welcome to Community Connection.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're more than welcome. And the conversation we're going to have is so important. And I think this is a conversation that needs to be had across the country. Foster children and how we deal with finding homes that are appropriate for each child. Maria, talk to us about Guiding Harbor, and I know it was a different name before.
Right, so Guiding Harbor was founded in 1958 by the General Federation of Women's Club Michigan, and we're located in Belleville, Michigan, and we were formerly known as Girlstown Foundation. We changed our name in 2009 to let everyone know that we also have males in our program.
Okay, so it's across the board, basically.
Yes, so it's across the board. And we are a private nonprofit child placing and child caring institution. So we have a residential program that is named Girlstown. Then we have an independent living program, which we have youth from 16 to 21, and they are in homes with home providers in their own apartments or maybe away at college. And then we have a foster care program.
Now, when you say you're a private nonprofit, now, do you work with the government as well? I mean, obviously. So how does that relationship work?
So we are funded by the state of Michigan, and we are contracted by the state of Michigan. So we actually are contracted by the state of Michigan to provide foster care services and our child caring institution, where it's a residential group home for 14 female girls.
Female girls, but you also do house males as well.
In our foster care program, we have birth to 18 males and females.
Okay, did I read something somewhere where it said birth to 21?
And that would be with independent living.
Okay.
So our older youth are 16 to 21, and we still provide case management services to them where they could be living. We have three or four youth at Western Michigan University right now where we go up there every month. We do a home visit with them. We make sure that they have their medicals and dentals. We provide them with a stipend where they can help pay their bills. And then they also get like the John Seda scholarship where their tuition is paid for.
Okay, walk me through that. Now, we're going to talk about the other end of this, but walk me through the 16 to 21 independent living. Now, how does that work, and where are they actually housed? I mean, are they housed with families but they're sort of independent, or are they independently living on their own?
So they are all abuse neglect wards.
Okay.
And the 16-year-olds are all adjudicated court wards. Our older youth are not necessarily coming in through the court where their court jurisdiction can be discontinued, and we would continue to provide case management services with them up to 21.
Okay.
Hopefully that makes sense.
It does. But where are they? I mean, are they with families?
Some are with families, some are with friends, some are with people that we have found in the community that want to be a home provider for older youth. Some of our youth are placed in their own apartment, and some, like I said, are in college. Okay. So what we do is we go and assess the placement. We make sure that whoever they're living with doesn't have a criminal history or any type of child abuse history. We assess the home for appropriateness and make sure that they're actually going to help provide this youth with some guidance and some independent living skills.
So basically, when a family takes in a young adult between 16 and 21, basically they're just providing guidance where they really can't put any restrictions or put any
We do have rules.
Okay.
Yes, they do have to have rules, and they have curfew because living in any community, there are curfew and rules. So our youth do have to follow the rules in the communities that they reside in, and then we may set up some rules for them. Some of our youth have, emotional impairments or other issues, maybe some mental health issues, so we want to make sure that they're safe. So whomever they live with, we make sure that they do have some boundaries and rules, and we do a contract with them. So they would pay the home provider a rent, and they would maybe possibly provide them with food or, maybe help pay their telephone, depending on how much money we set up at the beginning with their contract.
Okay. So to become A foster
home provider.
Okay, a home provider,
Right.
And that's for 16 to 21. What do you have to go through, and what are the prerequisites to be able
So
to
we would do a
apply
home
for that?
assessment, and they would have to have a central registry check, and then an iChat. It would be a criminal history check, and then of course we would, assess the home, assess them. What is their potential to care for a child? How would they like to care for a child? So we do an assessment on that, and then we try to find a match. Not all children are a perfect match with everyone. So
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So are your services sort of in the state of Michigan kind of thing? Are you centered in a certain city?
So
and
we're
your
located in
families are-
Belleville,
Uh-huh.
and we can service throughout the state of Michigan, but we're primarily Wayne, Washtenaw, Macomb,
Okay.
Oakland County.
Okay. I want to go back to that as well. I think it's very intriguing in the process and your experience with these young adults being placed. But for the younger children, walk us through a process where you have a child that is displaced due to negligence, due to child abuse, and you need to place that child. What process do you actually go through to be able to do that, and what are you looking for in families that are possible candidates to place this child with?
So right now we're really looking for foster parents for youth that are their relatives or youth that are not their relatives. So really
Okay.
the whole gamut. But there are two different ways. If they come in through a relative, they may have already been placed in the home, and then the relative is referred to us for licensing, and we wouldn't actually take the case over until the home was licensed. If they came in and they were just someone that was interested in providing foster care, they would contact our agency. They would come in and they would do an orientation. Both parents, if there are two parents in the home, would have to be there for the orientation. Then they do training. It's called a pride training, and then we train them for that. Then we come out to the home, and then we would do a home assessment. We would do criminal history checks. We would do the central registry check. Then there are licensing rules from the state of Michigan that we have to make sure that the house meets all these needs, that they have an income that can meet the need that's sufficient to provide care for children in their home. If they have a car, that they have automobile insurance, their driver's license is current. Foster parents cannot smoke in the home. They cannot smoke in the car around foster care youth, making sure that we've assessed that.
Okay.
Assessing their mental health, their physical health. So it is a very stringent process to go through licensure, but it can be done in a short time frame.
What happens when the child does have relatives and they want the child, but for some reason, through licensing or through your process, they're not they're not a good candidate? What process do you go through? I know that's probably a very emotional kind of thing, but
it's
what
very
happens?
emotional because the child may have already been placed in the home.
Right.
And the state does really try to work with the relative, and there are some rules that you can get an exception for. Like, for instance, if the room isn't big enough, they may give an exception that, two kids could only sleep in the room. Maybe we
Right.
can have 3 kids sleep in the room. There are certain factors that you cannot get an exception to, and they would be safety factors. So safety is always first and foremost what we're looking for. So if the safety of the child would be impacted, then of course we couldn't keep them in that home, and we would have to find someone else to move them with.
And what is your focus on cultural and religious adaptation in placing a child in a home?
Well, we always would try to find a home that would be congruent with the child's culture or religion. However, a lot of times that is not necessarily the case, and we cannot force a child to go to a foster parent's religious church, sect, whatever type of religious affiliation they have.
Sure.
We couldn't force them to. So we do try to make a match, but sometimes you don't know the child coming in what their religion is. So it's not always that easy to make that match, but we do try to do that, if at all possible.
So do you have a registry of individuals, though, that an abundance registry of individuals, or is that been a complete challenge in trying to place children, like a...
We've never had a challenge, but just for instance,
wow, that's wonderful.
in the Dearborn Heights area, it would be, or the Dearborn area, it would be nice to have some Arabic American foster parents that would come forward, because there are a lot of children that get removed from their homes that it would be nice to keep them in with their own culture, and sometimes it's difficult to do that. So we would like to find other, foster parents of other ethnicities if at all possible. And of course, family is the first goal. We always try to place with family first.
So what is the process of taking a child into a home under certain conditions, and then if those conditions or the concept or the environment is really not working out between the family and the child? What do you do when you have those kinds of situations happen?
So we do try to place children and have them have like a pre-placement meeting if at all possible, but a lot of times we do get children that come in emergencies in the middle of the night. It may not be a perfect fit. So we do require that foster parents provide us with a 30-day letter for removal of a child. So if it is not working out, and of course we do try to work with the families, we do try to sit down, put in things that are in place. Maybe the child didn't have counseling, maybe they needed grief counseling, so we would try to set that up, or maybe the case manager needs to come out to the home more often, trying to set things up that would keep the placement intact. And if it doesn't work, they put in their 30-day letter, and then we would try to find another placement for the youth.
And what about adoptions? Do you find a lot of adoptions happen through the foster care process?
In my years that I have worked at the agency, we have had a lot of adoptions happen with our foster parents. We have had some babies come straight from the hospital who have been adopted. We have had older teenagers who have been adopted, and family members have also adopted youth that have been placed in their home. We do not do adoptions. We refer out for adoptions to other agencies.
Well, I would think that your recommendation would probably weigh very heavily if someone wanted to adopt a child as well.
Yeah, it does. However, we do not do the adoptions, so we may make a recommendation, but we're not actually doing the assessment. And a lot of times a family member may come forth that was not the foster parent, so it just kind of depends on who would be best suited to keep the child safe and in a permanent placement.
So I would think it would be very emotional too for someone to have a foster child in their home for so long. What happens when you actually have to remove the child where the foster parents really
really is
can't cut those emotional ties? I can imagine how devastating that would be.
And it really is. It is very emotional. People. You get attached.
Sure,
I mean,
absolutely.
How could you not get attached to a child that's placed in your home? And people tend to grow and love these children that are placed in their home. And kids, the goal is reunification.
Right.
And if reunification isn't the goal, it's permanent. So.
And then displacing that child again after such an emotional, traumatic experience.
And some foster parents do it one time and they decide, this is not for me. I had this child, I love this child, and it was very difficult for me to give this child up. Other foster parents do it and they know that this is their role, and we need foster parents who know that this is your role. Maybe one day you will be adopting a child, but it might not necessarily be this one, because it is very difficult. I can't imagine giving up a child that I've had in my home for 5 years, and it is very emotional. But the goal is reunification, so we have to always remember that you will love this child while you have this child, but this is not your child.
No, absolutely. What are some of the, in your experience, what are some of the most traumatic and emotional situations that you've had to deal with in terms of placing a child and parents? And I'm sure that there's a lot of situations where maybe the child was taken away, mistakenly from the parents as well. Give us some examples of that.
I think a lot of children come into care and we do not know the extent of their abuse. And they become very bonded to their foster parent, and then the abuse starts to come out, and they will maybe disclose to the foster parent, then they disclose to us, then now we have to call in a 3200, we have to file a complaint of suspected abuse or neglect. This child may now have to be testifying in court. Things may have been brushed under the rug a little bit more than we had initially thought. So I think that the child gets comfortable with the foster parent, then they disclose the abuse. that's very difficult on the child. The child may start acting out. They may have, symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. They may start having flashbacks. So it is a very emotional process once they start disclosing. And then like I said, we don't know the extent of the abuse. Most of our children have been or could have been physically abused, sexually abused, emotional abuse. So it's very emotional.
So do you provide ongoing therapy to children while they're in the foster home for, those kinds of things? And I'm sure children do act up because of their experiences in the home. So how do you manage that? And I mean, do you have a one-on-one continuously? Do you have a therapist go in? What's the process there?
So we will refer all of our youth out for services in the community that they're in. We did have a part-time therapist at our office, but we have families that are placed all over the Metro Detroit area, so it's not necessarily conducive for them to bring the youth to our agency. So what we do is we try to find community mental health services in the area that they reside in, and we would refer the youth for services. But we also have a case manager who comes out to the home and provides services to the family on a at least monthly basis minimum.
So where's the biggest concentration of foster parents that you have within, geographically speaking?
Oh, wow. I mean,
now that you're based in Belleville.
We're based in Belleville. Our families are really spread out. I mean, we've got families in all over Metro Detroit. Really, we don't really have any one concentration. It would be nice if we had a concentration in Belleville, but we really don't.
Okay.
So we are really spread out geographically.
So do you find that you're placing children, culturally speaking, from across the board, or do you find that there's more of a cultural background that you see where you're placing children? It's
really completely across the board, and I know that there are stereotypes. People that have never met a foster child or have never fostered, they think that all foster children come from Detroit. They don't.
No,
they come from
not.
every community.
Sure.
We have had kids from West Bloomfield, Dearborn, Groseal. Children come from all over. You just never know what the issues are until you place them into a home.
So if you had to do a campaign for more foster parents, what would be your focus in terms of what you're lacking in terms of characteristic, culture, geographically speaking? What would be your focus?
Well, I think that we really need homes for babies, 0 to 3, and then we also need homes for youth that are 12 to 17. So those are the two areas that we really need for the age. And then as far as gender, males and females, pretty equal. There is a
That was my
definite
next question.
a definite lack of teen homes for males.
Okay.
That would be one area.
Do you find that families tend to not want to take in teen males? I mean,
Yes.
Those are the most difficult years. So you find that's
However,
more
the girls are
resistance.
more difficult
Girls are
to
difficult too.
foster.
I mean, it's definitely a balance. But is it easier to place a young lady than it is to place a young?
It is. It's definitely easier to place a young teen female than a male. But yeah, I mean, there's a need for across the board.
Across the board.
And then as far as culture, race, anything goes in foster care. And you don't have to be like, you could be any race to foster any culture. You just have to become familiar with the culture so you can, have the child continue their cultural beliefs.
How much emphasis do you put on that, if any? I mean, how much emphasis do you put on that, trying to place the child in those correct environments, or in those environments where they're used to culturally?
Well, we do ask the child's preference, so I think that's important. Sometimes the family doesn't have a preference, and then it comes out later that the family would prefer their child to not be placed in a certain type of a home. So that can be an issue, because you may have a phenomenal foster parent and the family could have their own presumptions about the family. So that can be an issue. But as far as our huge emphasis on it, I think that we're just trying to find the best, most suitable placement to keep the child safe.
So if I wanted to be let's say I wanted to be a foster parent, my husband and I, and what would we actually have to do? You know, take me step by step. Also, once I get the child, what responsibilities do I have? I mean, in terms of, you know, clothing, you know, food, extracurricular activities, you know, cultural enrichment, religious, you know, enrichment as well. I mean, what are my specific responsibilities, and what do you help me with?
Okay. So walking you through it step by step.
Yes, please.
You're coming in for orientation. You are going to sit
So
through.
I come to the office.
You're going to come to the office, and we're going to do an orientation overview of the rules. Then you're going to come back for training.
What do I have to disclose about myself? I mean, what are the questions that you would ask
So we
me?
are going to provide you with a statement of need, and the statement of need is going to tell you what types of children that we have in our agency, and would you be willing to foster those types of children. We foster children that are general foster care. We don't have severe handicap. We don't have medically fragile. So we're a pretty general foster care program. So making sure that you're able to foster children that fit into our criteria.
Okay.
Then, of course, you would come into the training. The training is usually a 2-day session. It's pretty long. You're hearing vignettes of foster parents, issues that they've had, things that have gone well, things that have not gone so well. Our staff are informing you on issues that can occur, you know, just things that happen in a general the foster child's life. Then we would come out to your home and we would do an assessment, and there is a very grueling assessment that we would ask pretty much everything about your life. You know, where did you grow up? Where did you go to high school? Did you go to college? What have you done in your life? What kind of relationship do you have with your children? Do you have adult children? We want to talk to your adult children if you do. It's a very in-depth process. Then, of course, we assess the physical limits of the home, making sure that, you know, it meets the criteria of what you would like to be fostered for. Do you want a baby 0 to 3, but you don't have a crib? Well, you know, we need to make sure that you have a crib.
Now, would you help me get a crib, or is it my responsibility to get a crib?
Well, we could help you get a crib. But, I mean, some people have a crib. Some people don't. So we would, of course, we could try to help you get a crib. We have, you know, different connections. We've purchased cribs ourselves for people. We've purchased beds for foster families. We try to help out as much as we possibly can. So then once you go through that entire process, you have, you know, the fingerprinting, the criminal history check, all that. You have to get your physical. The kids have physicals. We want TB tests. We go through. I mean, it's a very intensive process.
Okay.
We go through all of that, and then you finally will become licensed, and then now you're ready for placement. So you want to know what the everyday tasks of a foster parent are.
Yes.
You're the parent. You are the parent. So anything that you would do for your own child, we would expect you to be doing for a foster child. You have to take them for their physical. You need to take them for their dental. If they have things going on at school, we would like you to participate. If at all possible, if they could participate in extracurricular activities, that would be great for, you know, just for socialization. Family visits, it's your responsibility as a foster parent to transport the child to their birth family visits. And this is an area that is always a struggle.
I could see how that would be very, very touchy in terms of, is there someone from your agency that would come, or is it just the two families together?
Well, we wouldn't have you supervising the visit. It would even be maybe just necessarily driving the child to our agency.
Okay.
Then the birth parent would come to our agency. They would have their visit. You would, you know,
Okay,
you don't have
that
to
makes
sit.
sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so you're not necessarily supervising the visit. We would have a staff of ours that would supervise the visit.
Okay. So just the devil's advocate here, what is the incentive for families to actually sign up to be foster care?
So there is a stipend, and it's not a lot of money. So I wouldn't say the incentive would be money.
No.
The incentive would be that you truly care about children and that you are trying to help someone that's in need. And I think that that's a big incentive.
Absolutely.
Like I said, the money is not. There is health insurance, and there is money for clothing. There is extra money for extracurricular activities. There's money for...
So the children do have health insurance?
They
too.
do. They have
Okay.
Medicaid insurance,
And that's
yes.
important.
Yes,
That's
very
absolutely
important.
Really quick, if someone wanted to sign up to be a foster parent, what do they need to do? They need to go to the Belleville office. What's the number? So
So our phone number is 734-697-4804 or 7242. They could contact our office, just ask to speak to someone about becoming a foster parent, and then they would connect them to our licensing worker.
Okay, wonderful, absolutely wonderful. It was Girlstown, right? And now it is Guiding Harbor, and we really urge our viewers to become foster parents. This is really, and the incentive, Maria hit it right on the nail. It's about caring, it's about giving back, and it's about caring about children. And we desperately need more parents to sign up to take care of these children. Thank you very much for joining us on Community Connection. Maria, thank you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate
and opening this window to Guiding Harbor. Thank you all. Please call the number on your screen, and we'll see you next time. Remember, Guiding Harbor. Have a wonderful day.